Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship from Donington Park as we take on round number 3 of our championship. It's the first 45-minute feature race of the season, first of 3, in fact, all coming in the next 5 weeks until we get to our penultimate round at Sebring, which will be the last of those. It's myself, Ian Lillery, and Reece Gardner in commentary for you tonight with George Cook behind the cameras. Good to have you alongside me again, Reece. Looking forward to another round of this championship, a 45-minute feature race that is going to be sprinkled, it sounds like, with a little bit of rain, maybe.
Yes, indeed. There's a little bit of rain forecast towards the end of the race session. So let's see if there ends up being any moisture on the track here in Donington. A fantastic circuit for this third round to go to, a beautiful, fast and flowing track, and the oldest operating circuit in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of history to this place, potentially a bit more in the virtual world to be made tonight.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at the history that's already been made this championship season. It's Sebastian Eskandari who's taken the championship lead after last week's double win at Magny-Cours. Don't often see any driver take the 2 races in a sprint day, but he did, and he's now 18 points ahead of Craig Edwards, who himself has got 3 podiums out of 3 so far. They've both had a very good start. Nobody else has, of course. Scott Bartine is up to 3rd in a great start to his season. Thomas Hinds and Mark Hilly round out the top 5. Last season champion Hilly, of course, already 102 points off the championship lead. Ocean Colangelo is 6th. Jackson Riada and Kane Ryder, the only others, are over 100 points after Kane Ryder missed the points last week. He had a wheel failure, if I remember correctly, or some sort of technical failure. Tom Donahue and Angus Milne round out the top 10, and you can see all the rest of them all the way down the field, all the way down to Dylan De Bono, actually, who has been at both rounds so far but hasn't even scored any points yet. That's how difficult this season has been for everybody. In the silver class, Aidan Courtney's leading the way by 14 points. He's actually 7th overall, by the way, in the standings. Alexi Watson is in 2nd place. Ryan Borg wasn't here last week, and so he's only got the 60 points that he gained from a very good Mexican round at the opening round of the season. Then it's Justin McLaren and Matt Tesorero who is rounding out the top 5. And then minor points for the likes of Mitchell Campbell, Miguel Costa Texera, Nathan Verney, Jackie Chung and Anthony Bate, who rounds out the top 10. As I say, pretty minor points picked up by a lot of these guys, and as you see further down the field, it is no score for some of those. In fact, Chris Little's the last one who's been at a race. Those guys at the bottom haven't been at one yet, but presumably will be at some point in this season. There's the sort of overall look at things. We have got 38 drivers entered into tonight's race, so again, the bottom 3 drivers are going to miss out completely on any form of points, which is unusual for the previous seasons of this championship, but not this season. That's the way it's been for all 3 weeks so far. And I say previous weeks of this season, previous seasons indeed, of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, brought to you by Everything Simulated as well, of course. In a previous season, the reason I say maybe rain today is because the field, and indeed us as well, will be a little bit scarred by the race last season at Road America, when we were supposed to have, or at least the forecast said we would have, a 99% chance of rain from roughly half distance, and in the end not even a spot of rain arrived. So you never know, but we are told that it is going to be raining at least sort of on and off throughout the day. Should be a drying qualifying. from earlier rain, and a dry to wet race, and a one-stop race as well, which could come in that period. And if they do require wet tyres, then it will be especially awkward to change onto those while the rain is falling. If you're running out of fuel, maybe we could see a lot of people running quite long here. But so far in this practice session, Sebastian Eskandari is leading the way. We've just got over a minute left until qualifying, and I think it's fair to say, Reece, that this season is fast becoming a quest of who can beat Sebastian Eskandari rather than anything else. It's been a very, very dominant start from him.
It certainly has. Eskandari, a very accomplished karter in the real world already, racing in Europe as well, and the world karting titles. So he's definitely very capable behind the wheel, whether it's in the real world or the sim, and he's gelled very nicely with this Super Formula Light machine. Can anyone break his victory duck? Aside from what happened at the first round at Mexico, where he ended up winning the 60-minute race that started off the season, but unfortunately he fell afoul of the safety car speed rules twice and thus got bumped off the podium. So he misses one of those victories from earlier on in the season. But yeah, this season is very quickly becoming the Sebastian Eskandari show. Let's see if anyone can get a bit closer to him. It looks like Danny Davison, who is a new signing to Team Max Boost after round one, manages to get to within about a tenth of him there. And if you're curious about rain, well, there is a sizable bank of rain that has been approaching the circuit throughout practice, and qualifying basically sees the bank of rain right on top of the circuit. There's a very heavy cell that is dropping all of this water onto the circuit right now. Qualifying has officially begun, and everyone's scrambling to get wet tires on so they can try and maximize the conditions.
I must say, it's yeah, very fitting, isn't it, that we're at Donington. Goodness me, that is not nice, is it?
Where's the track? Where'd it go?
Yeah. Dear, oh dear, there's the track. Goodness me. Well, we were told it would be wet to dry qualifying. I don't think it would be very dry. It might be slightly less. Oh dear, just a McLaren straight off. This is an open session, don't forget. In the sprint qualifyings, when we have the first sprint race, like we did last week, you have a lone session. But this is going to be an absolutely chaotic open session. Don't forget, this is not the longest circuit in the world by any means. The lap times there were not that far over a minute, and the track's going to be therefore very, very busy. When the conditions are as difficult as this, that only adds to the challenge. It could be one of those sessions where, to be honest, your best bet might be get out there for 15 minutes and just continue to do laps and get used to the conditions and hope that they dry up a bit, rather than, you know, trying anything fancy with low fuel loads and coming back in pit lane and so on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're interested in a little weather update and semi-forecast, well, this is the end of that bank of rain that was approaching the circuit in practice, and with about 5 minutes to go in the session, the rain should ease up, but it'll be constantly pouring down up until that point. So I don't think we're going to be getting a drying track at all. Regardless, you are right. It's probably a good idea to just do multiple laps at a time here, just to get used to the conditions, try and remove some moisture off the racetrack. Oshan Colangelo is going to give us a little tour of what Donington Park is like in the wet through the final hairpin here at Goddard's. Got her teammate right up ahead of him, and now it's time to begin the lap with curbs that look like they're underwater at this point, Ewan.
Yeah, and they are a big part of the racing line at this circuit, so that's going to be something to watch out for. And of course, Max Boost as well, who often use Slipstream. I can't imagine this plays into their hands very much in the qualifying sessions. They're always running together normally, but and they are now as well. But I can't imagine it's quite as advantageous as what it is sometimes. Down the Craner curves, got to be so careful. And now missing the apex here, which is advisable because there is a big puddle on the inside there of the old hairpin. They now run absolutely flat out, try not to let the car get away from them. And the left-hander turns left-handers at 5 and 6, and now through McLean's turn 7, getting ever closer to that car in front of them actually. And that's going to be an awkward moment because the car in front of them will also be on a fast lap at the moment. But these guys are as well. So how are they going to work this one out as they come through into the chicane? Colangelo's going to get the wave bite through into the S's. Oh, it's so difficult through there, and that wouldn't be surprising to see that was an off track, but you just saw the way that she just turned in there, normal point, but then the car just went straight on for a little while it went through that puddle there.
Yeah, puddle right at the apex of the first section of that chicane, which is far from ideal. We already have a lap time or two on the board, but they are out laps for Danny Davison, Tristan McLaren, and Craig Edwards. We'll see what Colangelo can put down here as she comes across the line to set a 138.3. So actually, it does look like those are hot laps from Edwards, McLaren, and Davison. It seems that Craig Edwards has really come prepared for this one, as has Chris Little, who gets it down to a 136.5. That is more than a second faster than what Edwards could manage on his first lap. So that tells you that the pace is likely going to come down over the course of the session.
Yeah. So let's see. It's another reason why you've got to be out there for straight on for Jackson Rihanna, who was second for a long time in that practice session earlier. He got bumped down a little bit towards the end, but he's clearly not too bad around here. But maybe the conditions are going to make that very, very different. More drivers off through turn number 1. So Chris Little is indeed leading the session with a 136.5, and he's leading by over a second as well. And here's Eskandari trying to make sense of that, and everybody else trying to catch up to Little at the moment. But do not be surprised to see a surprise pole sitter here, because it's unusual at the best this session. It's going to be very unusual, and Eskandari, this is the sort of test of him we've been waiting to see, I think, because and he's been crashed into here. He's been crashed into. Well, I say that's maybe a bit harsh on the driver who's lost control over the top of Coppice. He's very nearly been collected here, Eskandari, and this lap is going to be toast. He is off through turn 8, and it maybe is a bit harsh to say that other driver took him out, but they lost control completely on the puddle there, and Eskandari, an innocent bystander in that accident.
Yeah, it was Dennis Hawkins and car 127 that ended up crashing into Eskandari there, and it was entirely due to running up over the white line on the entry to Coppice there. The number 1 rule for driving in the wet is you stay away from the white lines and the curbs. They have paint on them. The water can't soak into them like it can with the asphalt. So very slippery indeed, too slippery even for wet tires. And don't forget, the track temperature is going to be very cold as well. In fact, check the track temperature now. It's only 18 degrees Celsius. So you're going to have to work really hard to get some heat into these tires. Certainly are.
Can I always see the sun poking through? Or is it a bit lighter than it was before?
Yep,
not sure.
Sun's out.
It's very unusual, isn't it? I guess maybe this is the sort of drying period that they were talking about, but I'm not sure how much effect that's going to make in the next 9 minutes as Rihanna goes over the line in 3rd place. A little bit more of a normal front to the qualifying session takes a look at the moment, but Chris Little's still in 2nd, which is a great qualifying for him so far. Brody McConkey now 1st, just over a 10th ahead of Little, and then you've got Rihanna, who is next in line. So far, only 30 drivers have set times, still waiting for about a quarter of the field to get a time in. Tristan McLaren does that and moves up to 2nd, although it's only brief because Mark Healy goes faster. I wonder whether this is the start now of starting to see those times tumbling, because it's notably sort of at least less gloomy as it was before in the first half of this session.
Yeah, and the rain has stopped with basically more than 3/4 of the field out on track at any one time. So I think the moisture is going to be driven off the racing line pretty quickly here. We're going to be seeing the times come down fast. We already have with Healy on a 132.6. There's 1.4 seconds between himself and Danny Davison, and another 1.4 seconds between Davison and that time that McConkey said earlier. So we're down to mid-32s at the moment. I got to wonder, I reckon we might see a lap in the 131s by the end of the session. We've still got a fair amount to go. We've only just passed the halfway point.
Yeah, but maybe by the end of the session we'll feel like a 131 was underselling it a bit. We just don't know how quick this circuit is going to dry up, to be honest. The problem always is, as Eskandari goes over the line there with 2nd place, so he's on the board as well as Rihanna, who moves up to 3rd. The problem is that generally on iRacing, is this hairpin still horrific? The puddles don't, or do rather collect a little bit on the insides of corners, near curbs, and especially through the hairpin and down here at the the chicane and then the Melbourne hairpin here. It's very, very difficult to grab the apex that you need, so that will hold the lap times back for a while. But Hilly is in the 131s already, 31.4, and that's 1.4 quicker than anybody else. Kane Ryder comes out the final corner right now to maybe even join him, or at least on the front couple of rows. It's going to be decent. Yeah, third place, but nowhere near Mark Hilly at the moment, who seems to be a step ahead of everybody else right now.
Yeah, Healy, of course, the reigning champion of this series, but has not gotten his title defence off to the start that he wanted. It's been a drama-filled season thus far for Healy. Meanwhile, Mitchell Campbell takes the silver class pole position, puts himself third overall on a 133.0. And geez, have a look at Eskandari rotating the car into the corner there. Being a kart racer in the real world, he'll certainly be familiar with rotating the car on the brakes into the corners. You definitely need that in wet conditions, but these cars are remarkably twitchy and stiff, as are most open wheelers, so you need to be careful not to over-rotate. Rihanna makes a big improvement up to the 132s, and Miguel Costa Teixeira as well moves up to third overall now. The silver drivers are having a good day.
They are, very much so. It depends how you take to these conditions. Chris Little was second, or leading indeed at one stage. Now down to 23rd, and clear the drying conditions he's not taken to quite so well. But Miguel Costa Teixeira is up to third so far. Tristan McLaren up to second as he improves there. He's going very well as well. And in sixth place at the moment, Mitchell Campbell doing very well. And he's coming towards the end of another lap, actually. I wonder whether he's going to get anywhere near to Tristan McLaren here as he comes around the Melbourne hairpin. Kane Ryder goes up to second. There's constant improvements. Vince goes to third. Bartine to fifth. All with improvements in the last couple of moments. Colangelo to second. Hinds to fifth now. And the drivers I read out before constantly being pushed down. Craig Edwards to fourth. I haven't seen him much tonight at all yet, but he's moved up to the top five now. Brady McConkey joins him in second. Mitchell Campbell's been pushed to 13th, but moves to second in that time. 22 thousandths off of pole. These conditions maybe are drying quicker than we were giving them credit for, because these lap times are tumbling now for a lot of drivers, apart from the pole sitter Mark Hilly, who hasn't improved for a while.
Well, if you haven't been out on track yet, get out there and get some laps in. The track is in a great state right now, but I think the drivers that committed to going out early and staying out will have a big advantage here, as Eskandari goes to pole on a 130.6. That smashes another 7 or 8 tenths or so out of the average pace up at the top. Aiden Coote, unfortunately, spinning around there. And Kane Ryder now attempting the end of another lap here. The track is looking great. The tyres will be up to temperature now for everybody who's been out there since the start of the session. I reckon if you were to go out now, yes, you would get a good base time, but you'd still have to make sure that your tyres are as hot as the ones up the front.
And Mark Hilly moves back up to second. His improvements have been outpaced now by Sebastian Eskandari. Next up, Rihanna, then Kane Ryder, who moves to fourth, and McConkey will probably join them in the top five right now as well as he goes over the line. Let's see if he does. Yes, fourth place. So there's the five who we're really looking at. Although Scott Bartine, Craig Edwards, Justin Colangelo are not too far away, and we've seen them feature throughout this season in terms of good qualifying and race results as well. It is a massively interesting qualifying session, but I just wonder whether it's gone. Maybe this was always going to happen, even if it stayed really wet throughout the session, and they were going to get used to it over the 15 minutes. But I do feel like these last few minutes have really just, with the times tumbling, taken away the opportunity for a mixed-up grid. And Eskandari is going to go even quicker here, 30.3. It is returning to a little bit of normality again at the end of this session.
It certainly is. So 2.5 minutes remain, or just under. Let's see what response Healy has here in the Orbit drop bear machine, as he almost got rear-ended there coming into the Melbourne hairpin. Wet driving is so difficult to start with, but, you know, there's a real art to maintaining speed through the corner, balancing your car on the edge of grip, and getting the exit right out of the corners. Knowing where to place your car as well is incredibly important. That's would have been an improvement for Healy were it not for losing half a second somewhere around the lap. Kane Ryder makes an improvement, gets himself onto the front row, and Brodie McConkey, it seems, is gearing up for one more hot lap here. This being a single race server, drivers should be able to finish their laps after the timer hits 0. So if you want to be getting your final run started, now is the time to start the out lap.
Absolutely. I'd say it's not the longest lap in the world, but it's been made a good deal longer by these conditions. Tom Donoghue goes over line 17th, Angus Milne to 14th, just in the background. So some positions changing outside the top 10, but so far Eskandari is not being displaced by anybody. And he comes over the line again here for the end of another lap with 1 minute to go on the clock, and he goes quicker again, a 30.3. That is barely quicker, though. A very, very minor improvement, because you can see maybe half a tenth, because Kane Ryder's still only 800ths of a second away. Rihanna's just been held back, I think, by these conditions. He's 7th. Mitchell Campbell, though, has been the pick of the silver drivers. You mentioned it throughout certainly the big part of the wet portion of this session. All the silvers are actually doing quite well compared to normal, but Mitchell Campbell's the only one who stayed there.
Yeah, it looks like he's all on his lonesome there in 7th place. The next silver car is Aidan Coote down to 16th as Mark Healy makes a huge response to Eskandari there. Takes 4 tenths out of the pace at the front. First driver into the 129s right at the end of the session. I think this final stanza of laps we're seeing here is going to be huge. We're going to be seeing a lot of change here in the standings as Edwards goes to 2nd.
A great move from Edwards as well. So Eskandari has got to respond here if he's got the opportunity. Brodie McConkey will come over the line and he will finish this session in 5th. I think he caught the checker flag there as well. Mitchell Campbell certainly did. He's going to be 5th at the end of this session, and it should be silver class pole unless Miguel Costa Texera can do anything about that. And he was improving earlier. Here comes Eskandari. He wasn't any faster through the first 2 sectors here. And he's going to need a big improvement if he wants to overtake Mark Healy, who looks like he might well take pole position here. A mixed up grid perhaps at Donington Park. Over the line for Eskandari, and it is enough. He wasn't any quicker through the first 2 sectors, but he is quick enough by the end of the lap. It's a 29.6, which is enough for pole at the moment. 3 tenths of a second in front of Mark Healy, who has started this train of real improvements towards the end of the session. He was the first driver in the 129s, and he's going to try and be the fastest driver by the end as well. Is it one of those sessions where the last driver over the line wins it? And maybe Healy is going to be that man at the moment, because he was one of the last to start his final lap. Has he got enough in the tank here? A purple 3rd sector might be enough. He goes over the line and it is enough. Mark Healy, reigning champion, takes his first pole of the season. 2 tenths of a second in front of who's going to be a big challenger this season in the form of Sebastian Eskandari. It is Mark Healy who takes pole position after his 2nd place in both qualifying sessions last week. He finally gets the top, and it is 2 tenths of a second his gap. That was an exciting end to a very, very soggy qualifying session at Donington Park.
Oh, that it was. Magnificent stuff. I am seeing Eskandari still driving around the circuit at maximum pace, and you see that all of his sectors are purple there. I don't know if that's an artifact of the end of the session. Got to wonder if Eskandari managed to get across the line before the checkered flag. Is he going to commit to the end of the lap here? He is. We might see a surprise here for pole position. We'll have to go back to live pictures here as he sets a 129.6. Yeah, looks like that lap ultimately didn't count. That was a little error in the timing and scoring there. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I don't know why he carried on, because he definitely crossed the line after the checkered flag flew. I mean, a good 30 seconds after. It wasn't close. I'm not sure why he carried on, to be honest. Maybe other than to prove that I could have gone quicker if I'd had the time, but that's full of what ifs, I suppose. And of course, he would say the same. If I had one more lap after you, I would have improved as well. But anyway, that session could have gone on forever and they would have continued to improve. So we'll leave it at just the 15 minutes as the race begins here. Just 1:45-minute race here, of course, and it's Mark Healy who takes the pole ahead of Sebastian Eskandari. Last season champion, alongside this season's leader. Brody McConkey third alongside Craig Edwards, who's second in the championship. Danny Davison came rider on row 3. Had Mitchell Campbell, who takes silver pole, although Aidan Cook not far behind him. Colangelo and Rihanna are the only couple of drivers between them. Daniel Byrne and Miguel Costa Texera on row 6 ahead of Scott Barton and Thomas Hinds. Matthew Vince and Alex Stevens on row 8 ahead of Madeline McGee and Anthony Bate. Tom Donahue and Vaughan Ryder round out the top 20. Angus Milne and Chris Little are on row 11 ahead of Alexia Watson and Tristan McLaren, and Noel Silver row 12 ahead of Mitchell Albert and Doug Gowans. It's Marcus Knitska, Giuliano Sinesi, Jason Madden and Dylan Little who round out the top 30. David Gallo and Michael Brennan round out the next two positions. Des Hawkins is 33rd ahead of Dan Ackland with Nathan Verney, I think making his debut this season. James Casar, Matt Cesarero. Todd Parks will round out the field. 38 drivers as it will be, I think. Yes, indeed it will. Of course, a couple of race control guys down on there as well, ahead of any possible virtual safety cars that we may well get here today. So it's dried up for the race, and we'll see just when the rain arrives, if the rain arrives as well, because that was such an important factor of the qualifying session that we've just seen.
Certainly was. I've just taken a look at the weather radar, and yeah, rain's coming, and it is coming hard. This is going to be quite the interesting race, especially considering the track is still very lightly wet. And the big question for these drivers is, what tires do you start on, considering that there's going to be puddles around the racetrack that will be a disaster if you hit them on a slick tire. It looks like most of the field, pretty much all the drivers that have filed onto the grid at the moment, are going for the dry tire. That will be the best tire to be on for the first part of this race. But we got to factor in the fuel as well. The starting fuel is 21 litres, which is about 22 to 23 minutes worth of fuel. That should get you to halfway at the most. You are allowed to refuel to the max of the fuel tank. The total fuel required for the race is about 42.5 litres, and it would seem that if you can stretch that first stint out enough, you will be able to get onto wet tyres nicely when the rain comes. But it's looking like at the moment it's only about 20 or 30 minutes away. So we should be seeing drivers get past the halfway point on these slick tyres. They'll dry out the track just in time for the rain to undo all their hard work.
Well, let's see what happens here as the lights are about to come on here from Donington Park. The first 45-minute race in this season's Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship. And we are green at Donington Park. It's a good start from Mark Hilly on the front row, who immediately pulls in front of Eskandari, who goes onto the outside looking for the lead. Through turn 1 they go. On the slick tyres, it's very wet on the curve still on the outside. So got to be very careful if Eskandari comes down the hill. Inside line, got to be really careful here as they go side by side. Now flat out, of course, down the corner curves, and Mark Hilly does indeed hold on to his race lead.
Absolutely he does, and he leads by a good amount, about 0.7 of a second now over Sebastian Eskandari, who's trying to get going there. You see the spray being thrown up as drivers hit the puddles all the way around this circuit. The track is not dry enough for them to maximize it like they would have in practice. You still can't use the curbs. You still can't run over the white lines at the edges of the track. You need to be basically on rails. It looks like Bate has picked up a black flag, I believe, for a jump start, which is not good. Mark Healy, meanwhile, from the lead, has spun at the chicane, and that has triggered something incredible there. Multiple cars are now off, and it looks like one of them was a max boost one.
Aidan Coote is dropping down as well. Danny Davis, I think, is the max boost driver that you will have seen. He's down to 16th place. Dear, oh dear, what a strange start for Mark Hilly. A big lead, and it's all been wiped away very, very quickly. The puddles through here are not going away, and he slides and spins in front of the field, ironically in front of the field, allowing everybody else to see what was coming and slow down a bit more.
Yeah, it's rough if you're in Healy's position because, you know, they jump into the race and they don't have the opportunity to do sighting laps beforehand. So Healy would have been the first to find out that that chicane was still sopping wet. He had no opportunity to really prepare for that. So just hard luck and hope for the best as the race goes on. He'll be watching that weather radar like a hawk, trying to find when the best time to get onto wet tires is, because if you can do that, you'll be able to gain in leaps and bounds. Eskandari is all the way out in the lead now by nearly a second. First battles here, Mitchell Campbell and Ocean Colangelo fighting over fifth. Campbell is having a great run so far. I don't want to commentators curse him, but to see him up here means he's probably well suited to wet conditions, and he'll tiptoe here through the chicane, just keeps the car on the straight and narrow.
Oh, and a spin in the background for Alex Stevens this time, who goes around. These guys were 3 wide on the way into the chicane. They got single file for the corners themselves. Now they're 3 wide again. It's a spin for Bartine. Scott Bartine goes around. He's hit as well by Kane Ryder, who didn't have anywhere to go. And there's been contact there. Mark Healy, I think, is around again. And somebody's up on their roof. Are they back on their wheels again? I'm not sure. Healy's still dropping down the field. Anthony Bate, I think, was involved. Oh, it's carnage at the Melbourne hairpin, I've got to say. Colangelo spun at the final corner as well. She's getting back going again. I think everybody is back on their wheels again. Somebody definitely went up in the air there for a moment as they came through the Melbourne hairpin. It was absolute carnage there.
It was Mark Healy, unfortunately. We'll get Tristan McLaren's perspective of all of this, as it appears it all happened in front of him, 3 wide, and then that was a problem there. Meanwhile, Mark Healy and the car that spun there of Anthony Bate stricken on the way out of the corner, far from ideal, and this is Healy's perspective of it. He didn't have any time to prepare for this. Bate just spins ahead, and all Healy could do was go to driver's left. Unfortunately, wasn't able to clear the stricken car of Anthony Bate, who has already come back to the pits and repaired his car.
Oh dear. What a mess down at the Melbourne hairpin. It seems that the Grand Prix section of this, of course, when we turn left here rather than right, where there's an almost symmetrical chicane to the other layout of this racetrack, it seems remaining very, very wet. I mean, it is downhill here, all the way down to this bit, which I guess is acting as a bit of a bowl at the moment to just retain the water and retain the difficulty. As that's side by side, very close between Kane Ryder and Angus Milne there for a moment. Oh, very late on the brakes from Ryder, who nearly went into the back of the driver in front. He'll lose that place as a result, you would have thought. And, well, no, not quite. He's still there, just about, as they come side by side down the straight here in towards turn number 1. There's a traffic exiting pit lane right onto the racing line, as they do here on this track. And it's close, and it's contact. No. You could see it coming, and Kane Ryder has indeed got into the side of Milne, or has Milne come across him, not sure, but Milne has lost his rear wing, and he's down outside the top 15 now.
And any real-world open wheel series, losing the rear wing is an effective immediate retirement, because the rear wing is fixed to the rear crash structure and it's very hard to replace. Just a case of coming together on corner exit and there not being much grip to work out besides. Well, 5 minutes in, and it looks like the drivers are just driving through puddles and debris all over the racetrack at the moment. This has turned into a chaotic race. The only drivers who are really occupying the same positions they started in are Eskandari and Edwards, who remain first and third at the moment. But even then, they're up 1 from where they started. Everyone has had some kind of change, be it positive or negative here. Yeah.
And it's no surprising that, or no surprise, I should say, that so a lot of those changes are very, very large. I mean, look at Cassard's at the back of this group, who's up 16. That's a spin in the background for Alexi Watson, who drops outside the top 25 now as well. It's stopped from Brodie McConkey, who, by the way, has dropped behind Mitchell Campbell on this lap, I think as a result of trouble. Not sure whether he picked up damage, because looking at the forecast, you would not want to be making a pit stop before the rain arrives. I would have said, as there's a spin through the final corner, and more trouble here. The amount of drivers who are going to be able to do that strategy we've been talking about of pitting to change tyres and do your fuel at the same time is looking less and less likely as more and more of these guys get damage.
Yeah, indeed. I can confirm it was a spin for Brodie McConkey coming out of McLean's. He ran a bit too far over the curb and slid around. Craig Edwards got very lucky, ended up running over McConkey's front wing. but remains with a fully functional machine. And man, they are really pushing on the exit of McLean's, aren't they? There's just too much water out there to really maximize the exit, but they're going to do their best to do this. Tristan McLaren is right in the middle of this absolute mess here as Kane Ryder tries to defend from him. Danny Davison on the recovery. I mean, it's basically a matter of survival at this stage. You're waiting for that rain to come so you can get on the wets and hopefully have a stable race to the end. Eskandari is setting the pace up the front nicely. 1 minute 23 seem to be the front pace, but man, that's not going to last long.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. So we see this massive group from ninth place on backwards continue on here, headed by Thomas Hittens, who's having a very consistent season so far. Currently 4th place in the standings, having never finished lower than 10th or higher than 4th. Very, very consistent indeed as they come through at turn 1. That's a car off a bit wide. Kane Ryder, who's going to be out-dragged by Tristan McLaren as a result. He makes it to 11th. And look at the way that more of the silver class drivers as a percentage have done a cleaner start here than the gold class drivers. I mean, we've got 5 in the top 13 now, these silver class drivers. It wasn't anything like that in the qualifying session, and Mitchell Campbell is all the way up in 4th place, having a very, very consistent race. It's strange things that happen in these wet weather conditions, and some good drives at the moment in the silver class.
Yeah, and I think a part of that might be to do with the relative pace that silver drivers can manage versus gold. You know, the gold class drivers, you know, they're going to be driving as hard as they can and will maximize every little part of entry, exit, mid-corner that they can. That does narrow the margin for error, though. If you're a silver driver and you can't quite get up to the pace of those in the gold class, when it rains, you're generally in a better spot because you're already not driving the car to its limits. That can be beneficial in the wet where you really need to balance it on that knife edge.
Over the line again for this big group in 8th place on back, we can call it now. Madeline McGee's been caught by Danny Davison at the front of the group. And there's a bit of lap traffic here as well. Daniel Byrne, as McGee gets out the way for a teammate. We've got Daniel Byrne just up ahead in 37th position. He's the second last driver running, actually, and about to be the second, well, it is the second driver rather, who's 1 lap down here. And that is very telling of this race, actually, that everybody has continued on in the first 10 minutes, despite the carnage we've seen. Freddie McConkey, you can see they're the best placed of those who have stopped. I think the bottom 10 also have also stopped, unfortunately, which I say unfortunately, they will probably have to do it again. In a normal dry race, of course, you can make it to the end of the race by stopping on lap 1 if you want to, but the fact that they will probably have to change tyres in this race is going to really undo guys like Mark Healy, who has not had a good start to his championship defence.
No, Mark Healy is still way down the order, and I don't see much of a sign of him elevating up any further. He's down outside the top 25 at the moment. That's a rear wing missing, meanwhile, for Vaughan Ryder. And he will go straight on at the chicane and allow these other drivers past back outside the top 20. He's going to have to get that wing changed pretty much right now. I mean, you could potentially wait for the rain to come, but you just lose too much time and frankly be a hazard to other drivers if you stayed out there with damage at this point.
Yeah, it's not the longest pit lane in the world, so it doesn't completely kill you, but the fact there's only 1 stop here today is really not helping these guys. Some of the 45-minute races this season, we're told, will be 2 stop affairs. This one not on this occasion, as Thomas Hittens applies the pressure again to Madeline McGee. Hittens was the front man of this group before, but it's broken up massively now, and it's Hittens' turn to overtake here, at least try to. As he gets into the slipstream now, McGee going in towards turn, or the chicane, I should say. inside line. Got to be very careful, and you see how careful they're being, losing a lot of time by doing that, but they've got to be careful, otherwise they'll hit each other. Inside line for Hinds then, and 3 wide maybe from McLaren, who tries to get them both. He won't do that. Into the Melbourne hairpin, and perhaps sensible as well, as Hinds on the inside line just gets his nose in front. He's not far in front at the moment. Magny-Cours still right alongside, in towards the final corner now. Hinds has to pull a long way around the outside there, and he's not going to manage it. He'll get the exit instead and try and get through on the way towards turn 1. It looks like Thomas Hinds might well finally have this move made. It's taken him a little while, but he has now indeed got in front into 9th position, sealed through turn 1. Tristan McLaren will try and follow.
Redgate's a fantastic corner, a bit faster than you think, but it's a great overtaking opportunity, especially in wet conditions. Well, Tristan McLaren has a front row seat to all of this action, and Madeline McGee seems to be struggling a little bit to find the grip there, especially up this end of the circuit. It really struck me how slowly they went through the chicane that last lap, because usually it's just a fast flick to the left and then to the right, but they were almost going through it at the speeds of the old configuration of that chicane, which are betrayed by the extra tarmac to the outside on the exit. Now McLaren is going to have some pressure from behind from Marcus Konitska, who's had a pretty consistent run thus far. It would appear that he is up some 14, 15 positions or so. A nice consistent run for another one of our silver drivers. So let's see how he can keep this up from here. Meanwhile, weather check. The bank of rain is almost upon us. It'll only be about 5 to 10 minutes away. So this is where the drivers need to start preparing to come into the pits.
Absolutely. Let's see what at what time they decide indeed to do that. As the off it through the first corner. Is that a lap car? I guess it has to be.
That was Ackland.
Okay, yeah, Daniel Ackland, who drops down. He's just on wet tyres at the moment, so I think a few people have tried to preempt it further down.
Yeah, it looks like Ackland's just come out of the pits on wets. Anthony Bate has already been on wet tyres for the last 6 laps. I don't know how wise of a decision that is, but he'll try and make it work as best he can. I also see that Todd Parks is also classed as being on the wet tyre at the moment. He's been out there for 3 laps on them, but they're all drivers who are at the very back of the field, and I don't blame them for trying something different at this stage.
Absolutely. That's that's steep from McGee. Oh, who nearly comes straight back on in front of Konitska there. McGee will drop down to 12th, and Konitska gains that place. Craig Edwards, meantime, sets the fastest lap of the race so far, so conditions are still not that bad yet. 300ths of a second faster than Eskandari's previous best, which was the previous fastest lap through the final corner for these two. And Madeline McGee is indeed going to take that or not take the opportunity to come up through. Just seen that she's struggling in the last couple of moments. 12th place now, is still up 5, but maybe reached a peak of about 9th place earlier on. Is starting to lose a couple of those places she gained in the opening lap chaos.
Yes, it's going to be a long and difficult race for McGee and for many others in this sort of semi-midfield of the race. Just ticking under half an hour to go in this one, and there'll only be enough fuel in the cars for the next 8 minutes or so from here. It should be pretty well timed with the arrival of the rain, but once the rain does arrive, you got to remember the track doesn't turn wet instantly. There will be a couple of laps of like a transitionary phase where you'll see, wet tires and dry tires being attempted, but a clear advantage won't be gained for the wets until the track reaches a certain level of wetness. And a big part of success in these conditions is determining when that transition happens.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's a waiting game at this stage again. See when that arrives. So Colangelo hasn't been in the pit lane, by the way, down to 18th. Might look like it, but that spin out the final corner in the early minutes of the race really put her a long way down in this race here today. Currently 6th place in the standings. Got a first podium in the season last week at Magny-Cours in the sprint round, where she went from third to third. That's not going to happen here, you wouldn't imagine. But you never know, I suppose, in the next minutes, as Daniel Ackland indeed stops to allow a lot more drivers through on this occasion. There's quite a number of drivers who are a lap down at this stage, but nobody yet retired from this race at Donington Park. There's another pit stop for Vormrider this time. I say another, it's his first of the day, but still. Oh, and there's the rain. Well, yep. Maybe he's reacting very, very, very quickly. It's not time for wet tyres yet, but the rain has indeed arrived.
Yeah, I saw that for a few seconds beforehand, you know, a couple of little frames of a few water drops coming down. So the rain is pretty much upon us at the moment. It's very light at the moment, but it'll very quickly intensify. So, yeah, it looks like the first cell of this rain that is going to last for the rest of the race is upon us now. Looks like there might be a small patch of clarity before the rain re-intensifies, and yeah, the track will become sopping wet from here. The weather radar is showing up as yellow and orange in spots, which if you're familiar with iRacing's weather radar means it's pretty heavy. So let's see who is the first to really make the move into the lane. It looks like Danny Davison has jumped into the pits and switched to wets. Marcus Konitska is in, Madeline McGee in as well, Kane Ryder and Alex Stevens as well. Everyone else just waiting for that opportunity, but see the amount of spray that's being thrown up already. I think we're going to be seeing pit lane become a hive of activity.
Yeah, we certainly are. It's very interesting that it sort of have made the plunge so soon, but time and again I've seen since the iRacing weather system has been launched here, time and again I've seen the priority as Eskandari comes into the pit lane pretty much straight away here. The gains have been made by those who stay out the longest, actually, generally, but it looks like everybody is going to come in straight away. Obviously it depends how hard it's raining and the other million factors, but look at Mitchell Campbell compared to those two who are on dries at the moment. There is barely any difference. If anything, Donohue's quicker at the moment than Mitchell Campbell. McConkey is still in there as well in 11th position. It's not time for wets yet as far as I'm concerned, but pretty much everybody's in.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that transitionary phase right now, and I think there's enough heat in the track, enough heat in the tires as well to drive that moisture away and still maintain the grip. It is in the next couple of laps going to fall away as Craig Edwards, one of the first to change to wet tires, goes looping around out of Redgate, and it looks like Eskandari's done the same out of Old Hairpin. So I think you're right, you know, and the drivers that are staying out on dries at the moment are going to take a massive advantage out of this.
But the drivers that are staying out are numbering 0 at the moment. There's nobody who's stayed out on the dries yet. Everybody's got, and it's just not time yet. If somebody had taken the plunge, Gillian Senese has taken the plunge, so he's already a long way back, and it's unlikely that he's going to be pulling up any trees by doing this. But just watch him compared to some of these guys who are getting used to wet tyres. I mean, they're off the circuit, they're getting... Look at this. It is not wet enough for wet tyres yet. This is going to be a big learning curve for the whole of this group, because next time it rains, not everybody will come in straight away. They surely will realise that at least another couple of laps on the dries would have been good. Of course, now Senese is losing traction on the exit, and Konitska's going to get him on the exit there as he gets used to these wet tyres. But and maybe you could say that period of getting used to it might well happen, you know, anywhere, and so that's normal. But as far as I can see, it is not time for wet tyres just yet, and Senese will gain a little bit out of this, although it was already a long way back.
Yeah, certainly. There's so many small elements that you have to consider here as Campbell and Vince run side by side just about into Goddard's. The softness of the... Oh, God. Oh, dear. That's... I think that might be Texera that's spun around there, and I thought for a second he'd be going into the pits, but goodness me, almost every frame we see there's a car spinning around. The wet tyres are of a softer compound, and they're more deeply treaded, so they are going to wear out quite quickly if the track is too dry for them. I think some drivers are finding that out the hard way. The wet tyres have overheated, and so they're not providing even the very limited amount of grip that they should be.
Absolutely, Senesi is now coming in because he's realising that this track is getting very wet very quickly. Inside for Vince. He will overtake the... Well, no, not quite so easily. Mitchell Campbell is seemingly a very, very good driver in the wet because that was a good cutback manoeuvre for fourth position there on Vince, who himself is having one of his better races today, I must say. Inside the top 5 so far this season. He finished 33rd in the first race and 38th in the feature race of the sprint round. He didn't do the shorter race for whatever reason. No finishes inside the top 30 yet this season, but maybe a top 5 is on the cards for him today, although passing Mitchell Campbell might be a bit more difficult than he would initially have imagined.
Yes, so can Matthew Vince regain some momentum, keep it on the straight and narrow, and manage his grip? That is the big question. So the entire field, save for Dennis Hawkins, who's just come into the lane, are now on wets, and so that'll make the entire field now on wet tyres with 22.5 minutes to go. Everyone would have put the requisite fuel in their cars to get to the end as well, so it's basically just an out-and-out sprint in wet conditions to see who can manage this ever-deteriorating track.
This is Senesi out the pit lane as well, and here will be the argument for those going on wet tyres immediately, that even when you do go a little bit further on the dries, when you put on the wets for the first time, it's still very difficult. Tristan McLaren's finding that out now as well. I think that's through the old hairpin, is it? No, that's turn 1. Yeah, it's turn 1, Redgate. So he spins through there as well, and now drops outside the top 10. As a result, we've passed over half distance, by the way. I have a feeling the second half of this race is going to be more difficult than the first, as difficult as that is to believe after watching the first 5 minutes anyway.
Yeah, to say the least. Well, Craig Edwards still holding on to third place, and he's chasing Jackson Rihanna here. Edwards was about 1.7 seconds faster than Rihanna on the previous lap. Still holds on to the fastest lap of the race, and now that the track is wet, I don't think anyone's going to be challenging Edwards for that. But just keep an eye on the lines that they're using around here. They are giving at least half a car width to the edges of the racetrack. See the sheen of the puddles by the edges of the track here. Edwards stays off it, and he is searching for the areas of the track that aren't as reflective. That means there's less water and there's a bit more grip available. You don't want to run the conventional racing line because that's where the rubber's been deposited. When water comes down, it brings the oil and the grease out of that rubber and out of the track as well, so you want to stay away from it. Super wide through the old hairpin, but that's the way you gotta go.
Yeah, you've got to avoid the inside line, avoid the normal racing line, as you do it pretty much everywhere really. I'm not sure why it's the same at almost every circuit on our racing, where the puddles really do congregate on the edges of the circuit, even where people normally drive, but that's the way that it is. That makes it very, very tricky indeed to run these normal lines. Of course, you never end up doing that in the wet weather conditions. It doesn't seem to matter whether it's dry or wet at the moment. Sebastian Eskandari is still the leader by 13 seconds, and in fact he's probably extended his lead further since the rain started to fall and he put on the wet tyres a few moments ago. These guys are the closest chasers, Rihanna and Edwards, who are, again, for the third week in a row, just looking to limit the damage as much as they can rather than actually gain any points on Sebastian Eskandari, which they've been so far unable to do. Matthew Vince, meantime, has unfortunately had a bit of bad luck now, and he's got a meatball flag next to his name.
Oh, that's no good for Matthew Vince. I'm surprised that he's gotten that mechanical black flag without seeing him fall down the order, but he is crabbing hard. There's big damage to the suspension on that machine. I'm going to go back and check what happened to him. It actually looks like he ran deep at the chicane and went over the gravel. There was a bit of contact as well from Anthony Bates. So that's what's ruined the race there for Matthew Vince.
It's a lap car getting involved, Anthony Bate. Oh dear, someone off there. That's Battazarero, I think, who's gone off, and it will now be behind Angus Milne in this race, as these two continue to follow one another in their battle for second position. We'll see if we can see what happened to Vince in a moment. Side by side nearly. Craig Edwards looking quick at the moment on the back of Jackson Rihanna, and we do know this that from previous rounds, that Craig Edwards is very, very strong in the wet weather conditions. Wet weather racing at Interlagos a couple of seasons ago, he absolutely destroyed the field. He's going to struggle to do that here today. He sent him on the wrong line though. Rihanna going across the chicane a little bit wrong into the Melbourne hairpin. Edwards is going to be on the outside. He's going to break later. Rihanna's going to try and battle with him right to the corner. Oh, and he's going to edge him out as well. It's stern defending from Rihanna, who keeps Edwards behind him.
It's a very difficult corner, the Melbourne hairpin. It's effectively double apex. It's a very square corner, and oh dear, that's Edwards who's locked up the rears on the way into Goddard's. He gets going just in time for Brennan to arrive on the scene. Might be an unsafe re-entry, but ultimately Brennan was able to get on the brakes nicely for that one. And unfortunately, that's Edwards out of the battle for second place for now. It seems that no one can match the pace of Sebastian Eskandari at the moment. This is what happened to Matthew Vince earlier. You see that Anthony Bate behind just clips his left rear, and that broke the drive shaft, I reckon. There wasn't really much Vince could do about that.
He'll be absolutely furious with that, you'd imagine. Being run over by a lap car there. Chris Little goes too wide at the final corner. Gets back on without too much trouble. Using that alternate layout, of course, where you turn right at the chicane instead of left, as we do here. Tristan McLaren, meantime, off the road from 5th place in the silver class here. And this is through the sort of middle part of the lap. He's not going to lose any class positions, but of course, even if you lose overall positions, you lose points in this series, given the way that the scoring system works. Oh, it's through turn 1, excuse me, and he's off the road again now, down the Crater curves. Oh, and a spin in the background for Brodie McConkey. That's McLaren, I think, recovering there. Yeah, it was. McLaren had spun to the inside of the old hairpin, so he'd been off for a second time. In the background, Brodie McConkey went into a spectacular spin on the outside of that corner. It is still all happening at the moment.
Yeah, actually looks like McLaren and McConkey made big contact through Craner curves. I saw McLaren do a wheelie as he was sent spearing off the track. Thank goodness this circuit has had so much landscaping done over the years. Have a look at this. Bam! Ooh. Off goes McLaren there as McConkey found just enough room to get up the inside at Craner curves, but ultimately came to naught at the old hairpin. Yeah, this track has very wide runoff areas now, but this place is constructed from old carriage tracks in the Donington Hall estate, and it used to be very heavily wooded. All you need to do is look up footage of the Grand Prix that happened here in the 1930s to see that this track used to be lined with trees. A mistake like that would have certainly played out very differently 80 years ago.
Yeah, no surprise. I guess about that, unfortunately. Kane Ryder moves to 9th, meantime, ahead of Marcus Knitska, so he's on the road back again. Sebastian Eskandari, meanwhile, leads by nearly 20 seconds now. Jackson Rihanna holding off Craig Edwards has certainly helped this situation, but even with 15 minutes to go, I'm not sure Edwards is going to be able to get to Eskandari in time. The rest of the field left hoping for a safety car, unless Sebastian Eskandari is going to take a 3rd race victory in a row. And this is one of the most dominant starts to a Super Formula Lights Championship season we've ever seen in FDL in this over the course of this year. This is our 4th season of 2025, and nobody has started quite as dominant as Eskandari has seemingly so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's certainly proving himself to be a bit of a rainmaster as well. He's the first driver to get into the 131s in wet conditions just in time for the rain to come back. There was that brief clear period where there wasn't any more rain hitting the racetrack, but now it's back and it's not going to be going away from here. So we're going to be seeing the lap times fall back down, but Eskandari's pace advantage in the wet is just incredible. He is running about at least a second faster than everybody else. So that looks like trouble for Jackson Rihanna, and he will fall down to 5th place. That puts Edwards back onto the podium there for 2nd place. This happened down at the old hairpin. Rihanna running through the middle of the puddle, and that was just too much for the rear end. Round he goes. But for Edwards, he may not finish 2nd in the end unless he can get more than 5 seconds worth of time ahead of Mitchell Campbell, because he was given a 5-second post-race penalty from race control for the unsafe rejoin that we caught live.
Yeah, well spotted. I've not been paying enough attention to the penalties actually so far in this race, so I'll read them all out because there are another few. Mitchell Campbell's got 5-second penalty as well in the lead of the silver class. That's for an incident with Daniel Byrne on the opening lap of the race. 10 seconds of a time penalty to number 29. It doesn't say who that is. It's Chris Little in the server. So that was for an incident on lap 2 involving Alexei Watson and one other. And then Anthony Bate has also got 10-second time penalty for, I think, for hitting Matthew Vince into the final corner. Indeed it was. So that's 10-second time penalty to him, and that's all the penalties. So ones to look out for especially, Campbell and Miguel Costa Texeira, which is only just over 5 seconds at the moment of a gap, and also that one for Craig Edwards as well. So Campbell, I guess, doesn't overtake Edwards in that situation. Edwards keeps his. I don't know what's going to happen here. Two of those podium guys have got 5-second penalties at the moment. And I personally hope they spread out a bit more, so we don't have to work out what actually happens there.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit of mental maths at the very end of this one. Thankfully, we've still got another 12.5 minutes to work this one out. Tristan McLaren picking up an iRacing black flag there. He's jumped into the pit lane, and Scott Bartine and Daniel Gowans, who are also way down the order and getting black flags as well. So, sorry, Doug Gowans, my apologies. So, yeah, it's been a really tough one for pretty much everybody in this field outside of Eskandari. Aside from his spin out of pit lane, our race leader doesn't seem to have made a single mistake so far. Yeah,
it's been remarkable from Eskandari.
I manifested one.
I don't think it's a major one. It's just a brief trip off through the old hairpin. I think, actually, to be fair to you, he did have one of those earlier anyway. So that's not the first, from what I've seen, that he's run slightly wide through here. So see if it's same again. He's on the normal line. Well, normal line for these conditions. It just gets the car away from him there. He didn't go all the way around. Good car control to keep it at least pointing the right way. But this is about 1.5 seconds, and that is fine as far as Eskandari is concerned, I would imagine, because he's got over 20 of a lead. This is, I must say, I know you haven't been here for all the season's race, but this is uncharted territory. This kind of dominance in the Super Formula Lights Championship, in the F4 Championship, we did see some dominance last season, and some of the same names up towards the top, but as far as 3 wins in a row is concerned, we've had seasons where we've got to the final round having had 7 winners in the first 7 races, back when we only did 1 race an evening every time. We got to the final round having not seen a driver win twice. I think that finally did end on the last round. I don't think we've had a season where every race has been won by a different driver, but that's certainly not going to be a record broken this season. In fact, Eskandari might go on for a record of most wins in a season, because this so far has been unbelievable.
Yeah, just incredible pace from Eskandari, and seems that no one can beat him, let alone match him, as things stand at the moment. This is a nice fight. Madeline McGee trying to fend off Little through McLean's, and coming up to Coppice, they see a car spun around. It looks like that's Mark Healy, who's continued to have dramas there. He's going to fall a long way down outside the top 30 now, as Little catches the grass on the exit of Coppice, and will now fall under pressure from Mitchell Albert for 17th overall. McGee says run away. She would very much like to not be harassed for the rest of this race.
Absolutely. That's for 16th overall, of course. Let's see what happened to Dennis Hawkins here, who comes into the Melbourne hairpin. That outside line breaks just a little bit too late, and maybe even that was intentional, letting a couple of drivers in front go through. Hawkins is all the way down in 37th position, so unlikely to get a result. Mark Healy, unfortunately, unlikely to get a result as well. He goes for a spin out of McLean's, that is, through turn 7. And he'll try and get back going again as well, but goodness me, this has not been a good start to his championship defence for Mark Healy. The reason why this is such bad news, even more than otherwise, is because, don't forget, he finished 25th at the Mexican race, the opening round of the season, the Australian Hermanos Rodriguez at the beginning of the season. And that's only 11 points for his 25th place finish. If he finishes outside the top 30 here, he can't take a drop score for that 11-point finish. In fact, he'll have to be a drop score for this finish, whatever it would be at the moment. I think it would only be 5 points where he is at the moment. So 11 points would have to count towards his score. And when you're likely going up against someone as fast as Eskandari and as strong as Eskandari, that could be very, very difficult to overcome even this early on in the season.
Yeah, I think if he wants to look at a title defense, Mark Ely is going to have to hope for a miracle, or for Eskandari to miss a couple of rounds. As things stand, Eskandari leading by 26.8 seconds. That's the biggest winning margin that we've seen, the biggest leading margin this season. So far from ideal for everyone else who's trying to chase Eskandari for the championship lead. 8 minutes to go in the race. My timing is telling me 5 laps to go for our leader. And amazingly, it looks like Mitchell Campbell has managed to find his way past Craig Edwards. I'm not entirely sure what happened to Edwards there, but there has been that trade for second spot, and we have a silver class car in the runner-up position. I mean, this is going swimmingly for Campbell at the moment. Touch wood.
Yep, this is how it happened for Craig Edwards, who's normally so strong in these wet weather conditions. He goes a bit too wide up over the top of the hill there into Coppice and goes off into the gravel. And he could not afford that, really, with his 5-second penalty. So, at the moment, I'll do it based on the distance to Eskandari, I think is the easiest thing to do at the moment. They've applied these penalties mentally. So, 28 seconds currently from Campbell to Eskandari. That would become 33, which would drop him behind Edwards and Miguel Costa Texeira. Although Edwards would also have a 5-second penalty, that would drop him 34.5 seconds away. That would drop him behind Rihanna. So, I think that means Campbell would be third, Costa Texeira would be second, Edwards 5th and Rihanna 4th, I think. But of course, that all could change in the next 7 minutes, as it seems Rihanna and Davison also, Dane Davison, who's not that far away, are catching. Miguel Costa Texeira is actually getting closer to Campbell, although if he gets in a fight with Edwards or indeed Rihanna the other way, then he could lose enough time to not win the silver class.
Oh dear, so many numbers swimming around in our heads at the moment. I think we'll need the race control guys to tell us as soon as they can what the actual finishing order of this race is. Jackson Rihanna, meanwhile, chases down Texeira here, gets to within half a second with 6 minutes to go. You can see that the rain combined with the sunlight is really making for some spectacular imagery at the moment. It's just gone past 3:42 p.m. in sim time. And Jackson Rihanna is staring into the darkness there as he grabs 4th place on the way into Goddard's, almost banging wheels on the way in, but altogether a nice move to make up the position. Eskandari has spun again, and he just did a perfect 360. What?
These are things you can practice when you've got nearly half a minute of a lead. He's still very, very comfortably out front, but we'll try and see that again in a moment, as he's clearly having trouble out front. Daniel Ackland is going to have a post-race review hanging over his head. Brody McConkey's had a 5-second penalty in the last few minutes, by the way. So has James Casser, and Anthony Bate gets another one. They've actually had penalties. They reported each other and got penalties, as both of them. So those two have given each other 5 seconds, which I guess in another sense is sort of no penalty at all. But especially when you're that far down. But anyway, excuse me, that pass from Miguel Costa Texeira has just given Mitchell Campbell enough of a lead to now be ahead of his silver rival. So these battles are very important as Davison gets onto the back of Miguel Costa Texeira. Campbell's off himself through the chicane and he's letting him go at the moment, Costa Texeira. Not sure if that is the best idea. I guess he's hoping that Campbell's also going to be overtaken by them in the next 5 minutes, as Edwards indeed. Is that another penalty or is that the one from before? No, that is the one from before. Yeah, just confirmation of the one from before. So his strategy at the moment of Costa Texeira to hope that Campbell is going to be slowed down by these guys is working, because Craig Edwards goes down the inside of him and goes through.
Right, back up into second place on the road. Of course, that will not entirely be the case when the post-race penalties are applied, but man, the rain is not going away. The track is just getting worse. They are tiptoeing around here in the final 2.5 laps of this race is what Eskandari has to go according to my timing, and it looks like, unfortunately, we have lost Mark Healy from the race. He manually disconnected a few moments ago. So, yeah, our reigning champion will take no further part here. And we see Kane Ryder and Brodie McConkey with black flags on the way into pit lane. A lot of drivers overcoming the incident limit here. I'll just double check the event rules. It looks like 17 incidents is the limit before you get a drive-through automatically assigned. And plenty of drivers have fallen afoul of that already.
I think you could easily pick up 17 just by making mistakes, or because it's so little of those before you actually end up getting up to those 17. As Little goes down the inside of Madeline McGee. Now only up 2 places from where she qualified, but hasn't had any incident as far as we've seen so far today. So just surviving has probably got her a better position than it otherwise might have been. 15th position so far for Madeline McGee. So those are the intervals on the left-hand side. Trying to work out whether the lead would change in silver, yet it would not. Well, it's teetering on the edge. I can't tell you. I know it's difficult to see from the tower on the left-hand side. It's going to be difficult to show you at home quite how close this is. But I can't. I'm watching the time screen at the moment. I can't tell you how close this is at the moment. Campbell is currently 10th of a second. It's now 2/10 of a second behind Costa Texera. Don't forget, he needs a 5-second gap over Migo Costa Texera to win the silver class here tonight. He deserves to, definitely, but he's got a 5-second penalty that he's got to stretch out over the driver currently in 6th place.
And that's going to be difficult to do with only a couple of laps still remaining here. It looks like Eskandari will be coming around to potentially take the white flag. I think it's going to be a matter of just a few seconds or so that defines whether or not we go for an extra lap here. 1 minute and 45 seconds on the timer here, and with current pace you'd need about 1 minute and 30 on the clock when you cross the line in order for it to be the final lap. It looks like that will be the case, but does Barney have the white flag out in the stand? I'm looking for it, but no white flag. We're going to go an extra lap.
This is the thing with iRacing, that it doesn't quite know how to deal with a race that's dry to wet yet, because the average lap time would still, is probably enough at the moment to actually get another lap. But as you say, the conditions, because they're the worst they ever have been, and the lap times are as slow as they ever have been, the sim is a bit confused about how many laps they'll be able to do within a 45-minute period. So I think this will be the checkered flag when they come by next time, although the white flag isn't waving yet. I have seen the checkered flag come out with no white before, and I've seen the white flag wave twice.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're guessing at the moment. We'll just have to see when he comes around again. Rihanna and Davison are very close to Campbell again. Campbell can't really afford a battle with these two. He can't either afford them to overtake him. It's still so close with Miguel Costa Texera. Unbelievably close. We can't actually get a gap between two different drivers who are not actually together. It'd be quite helpful if Rihanna and Davison got out of the way, but obviously they won't do that. They've got important points themselves, and they themselves will actually move up to 3rd and 4th. But no arguments about who's going to win this race. Sebastian Eskandari has been absolutely dominant again. We very rarely see a 3 in a row from anybody in this championship. It's so close normally in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, but Eskandari is starting to dominate. He comes over the line now. He's not going to see the checkered flag. It's 10 seconds after the allowed 45 minutes. We're going to carry on again.
All right, so there's still opportunities here for drivers to make gains now. This battle is now 3-way for 3rd place. Mitchell Campbell, Jackson Rihanna, and Danny Davison. Davison has been on a great comeback here. He's managed to work his way back up to his starting position of 5th. Can he potentially get a podium by the end of this last 4-kilometer lap?
I think if Campbell lets Rihanna through, or indeed even battles with Rihanna, it could be over as far as this race win is concerned. It might already be over as Miguel Costa Texeira has got a little bit closer on this latest lap. It's now a second and a half in his favour. That's the time he would have to lose. Oh, and Campbell can't afford that. That's a bit of blinking there from him as Rihanna puts the pressure on out of the old hairpin. He's not going to be able to make the pass for the moment. Rihanna, of course, doesn't actually need to do anything here, and he'll finish second as it stands.
Yep, good job from every driver involved in this one to be holding on for this long. Frankly insane. I would have spun every single lap in these conditions. I'm not much of an open wheel specialist myself. Here comes Jackson Rihanna to try and take that third place on the road, up the inside. Oh no, actually outside into the chicane, and he gets the move done beautifully around the outside. But here comes Eskandari to take the checkered.
3 in a row for Sebastian Eskandari, who wins here at Donington Park comfortably, even though his last lap was a little bit slower and he's lost a bit of time. Here is Rihanna and Campbell still fighting. Campbell's going to lose this win, I think, in the silver class. Rihanna's in danger of losing second place, which is at the moment occupied by Craig Edwards. He's got a 5-second penalty though. Campbell's trying to get this podium at the end, but he's not going to. Edwards goes over the line. Then it's Rihanna, Campbell, Davison and Miguel Costa Texeira. So where does Edwards fall to? He will drop behind the whole of that group, apart from Campbell. So Rihanna up to second. Davison's up to third. Campbell will drop down then behind Miguel Costa Texeira, who does indeed win the silver class by about a second with those crucial 5-second penalties at the end.
Wow, so decided on time penalties, but still incredibly close. Just a great race and entertaining all the way through. More wet weather racing, please. I really enjoyed this one, at least from up at the commentary box. I don't know how the drivers would feel about it.
Well, we'll ask them in a moment, but I suspect it wouldn't be overly positive compared to dry weather racing. At the moment, we're just looking for anything that would shake up the race-winning point, but at the moment, that doesn't look like happening. 25.9 seconds today, the gap for Sebastian Eskandari, by the way. As Tom Donahue, the final driver on the lead lap, comes over the line, only in 13th place. That's what an attritional race this has been. To give you an idea, I know we had some safety cars, but at the Ostroma Hermanos Rodriguez, we had... what was it? 30? I can't quite see. 30? Yeah, exactly 30. Finish on the lead lap. So there you go. Sebastian Eskandari wins here tonight at Donington Park. And Craig Edwards, who will drop down to 4th. Rihanna will be 2nd. Ahead of Davison, who will be 3rd. Then it will be Costa Texeira, who... then it will be Edwards, who's 4th. Then Miguel Costa Texeira will be 5th. Then Campbell in 6th place. Hope that's clear. Thomas Hin's last driver within a minute, and he's only 7th. Aidan Coote finishes on the podium in the silver class in 8th ahead of Alex Stevens and Kane Ryder. Oisin Colangelo finishes 11th. Then Chris Little and Tom Donahue, the last driver on the lead lap, as we saw. Marcus Konitska and Madeleine McGee round out the top 15. It is Mitchell Albert, Brody McConkey, as well, who finishes in 17th place. He got a couple of 10-second penalty, or a couple of 5-second penalties rather, though. So he will drop behind Giuliano Sinesi and David Gallo, with Angus Milne running at the top 20. Matthew Vince was 21st to Justin McLaren, Nathan Verney, two silver class drivers. Scott Bartine, Michael Brennan, and Daniel Byrne ran at the top, or at least those on the first lap down. Anthony Bate was 2 laps down, along with Dylan Little, Dan Ackland and Alexei Watson, who were in the top 30. Jason Madden, Vaughan Ryder and Jane Kasser, 2 laps down as well. Matt Tesorero, 3 laps down. Dennis Hawkins, 4 laps down. Doug Gowan, 6 down. Mark Hilly, 9 down, as he said, retired. And Todd Parks, 17 down, as he retired early as well. Not as many retirements as you might expect to see in a very, very attritional race. Let's have a chat to Sebastian Eskandari then, shall we? Race winner tonight once again. Seb, welcome in. Good to have you with us. How were the conditions out there at Donington Park tonight?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. It was a very interesting race, as I'm sure you could see. From the start, when it was lightly wet and puddles everywhere, it was really hard to keep it on track, and Mark unfortunately spun on the first lap. From there, I sort of just tried to keep my head down and keep it pointing the right way.
obviously hard to say what would have happened if Mark Hilly had stayed up towards the front with you, and of course a million other things could have happened here tonight, including a delayed rain shower or indeed one a bit earlier in the race, who knows. But do you feel that was the key moment in the race, really, you getting to that lead there, and from there you never really looked back?
Yeah, that was an important part of the race. As everyone would know, when you get in the lead, you just start to get into this rhythm that you don't when you're behind people. And I just felt like I found that rhythm much quicker. And so it was really good, so I could just start pulling a little gap before we came into the pits. And then the rain sort of helped me out as well, because everyone was trying to push and catch me, or catch each other. So they kept making mistakes, and I just kept pointing in the straight line the whole time.
Well, congratulations on taking 3 in a row. I'll have to go and look, but I'm not sure how many drivers have done that in the Super Formula Lights Championship here at FDL. So congratulations on that, and thanks for coming to chat to us after the race as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. See you later.
Thanks very much. That's Sebastian Eskandari, who wins for a 3rd time in a row. Not a pole to win this time, though, like the last 2. Let's have a chat to Jackson Miana, shall we? Run up last season in the championship, and run up tonight as well. Jackson, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Not sure how aware drivers are in these situations when drivers around them have got penalties, but Craig Edwards with a 5-second penalty drops behind you, and indeed Danny Davison, as far as I can tell, and you'll be up to 2nd therefore. How aware are you of that, though, when you're actually driving?
Good evening, Ewan. Yeah, I actually forgot about it until literally a couple of seconds ago. So yeah, happy with that. Like, obviously filthy with myself for that spin through the fast right. Yeah, but like, we had 2nd. I don't know if anyone was catching Seb. Like, he's really thrown down the gauntlet and said, I'm the one to beat this season, as if he hadn't already. But yeah, look, you know, 2nd was good. Like, we were happy there, and then obviously the spin, and I'm just glad we were able to cover and get back to where we were before we had the spin.
It's fair to say you're going to be one of those drivers who jumps up after the drop week is applied because of that first round of the season you had. But what do you think it's going to take now to catch Eskandari for not only you but the whole field at the moment?
Well, I always say that pace affords you the ability to make mistakes during a championship. You can get away with a lot if you've got a lot of pace, and Seb has probably more pace than anyone in the field. So I think that's probably what it's going to take. I think it's going to take some mistakes from him, but I have faith that he's going to get his head down and do really, really well. So the onus is on us for everyone else to try and get better and catch him. But he's still very young. His ceiling's still very high. So that's going to be a very, very big task.
And just one last thing that we're wondering personally here in the commentary box: would you be pleased or not to see any more rain races like we've seen here tonight?
I don't mind. Like, changeable conditions is the thing for me. Like, there was one stage of the race at the start where I was really quick, and then it started raining, and that sort of moderate wet. I lost all my pace. Like, Craig was catching really, really quickly. But then when it got back to heavy wet, then we got had my pace back again. So I kind of like that. It makes the field sort of ebb and flow, and it encourages practice too. Like, did a few wet laps last night, and tell you what, after the conditions of that race, I'm very glad I did. But yeah, no, look, I wouldn't mind some more wet racing, and especially with the changeable conditions thrown in there. Maybe a drying race would be cool. Start at wet, but have no rain, and see who can pick the time to go back onto dries, who will risk it.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see, but we'll see whether we get that. I mean, there's one more race in the UK and a race in Florida in November, so we might well see rain again before the end of the season. But for now, Jackson, thanks for chatting to us. Congrats on 2nd tonight, and we'll see you again next week.
Cheers, Ewan. Nice to talk to you as always.
Thanks very much. That's Jackson Rihanna 2nd here tonight. I don't think Danny Davison knows he's 3rd. He's not here. So we'll go to the silver class leader. And indeed winner, Miguel Costa Texera, who has taken the class tonight. Miguel, welcome and good to have you with us. Silver class winner, just in front of Mitchell Campbell after his 5-second penalty. The gap at the end in the results is going to be roughly 1 second. How are you feeling having taken this win tonight?
Oh, look, for me, I think it's a bit of a redemption. I think the story, I joined sort of 3 races into last season and nearly won on debut around Detroit due to a half spin. that cost me the win, really. I had lost about 7 seconds in the half spin and finished about 4 behind Alex, so that was like almost, I felt robbed at that point. And then we went to Fuji later in the season in this sort of similar condition, and I put it on pole. So I knew I was fast, and I just had a little incident early in the race that really killed my race there. So, you know, I think this season for the whole Pro-Line team, not only myself, has been a bit of a story of what could have been. Obviously, Ryan got the silver win in the first round, and then last round, I felt like a lot of us had the pace there. So, look, I'm ecstatic. Like, I knew early that Mitchell had that 5-seconder, and I sort of just was managing the gap. I let Rihanna and Davison go sort of late in the race because I was like, I'd rather a silver win over maybe battling for a podium or something. So, look, man, I'm ecstatic. I'm ready to crack some beers open. It's 8:30 on a work night.
I can imagine very pleased with the result. I mean, what do these conditions sort of give to you tonight, as it were, in terms of speed? Because we couldn't help but notice that there was 2 types of silver class drivers tonight. There was one that your side of things that almost seemed to thrive in these conditions more than a lot of the golds, and another who sort of seemed to be a long way down, and you know, in the second half of the field, as we normally see from silvers. So, what was it about these conditions, and are wet weather conditions something you do particularly enjoy, because you ran very well tonight in them?
Yeah, look, I do enjoy the wet and mixed conditions. Like we just done the Bathurst special event a couple of weeks ago, and I did a whole stint in the sort of drizzle on the slick tyre to, you know, in the lead of the race of that by 40 seconds. So I think I'm pretty good in the sort of mixed and wet conditions. So look, it's there's a lot of heroes out there at the start of the race when there was a mixed condition. So. Yeah, look, it's all really about surviving in that in the wet condition, and sort of just letting the car be balanced and not over pushing it. Like, you know, there was a couple of times where I was like, oh shoot, I'm deep into this corner. I'm just gonna, you know, hold the brake a bit longer, not turn it in yet, and just roll it through. So yeah, there's a lot of car control in it, yeah, no, it's great. I really enjoy the wet conditions. So bring it all on more, admin team, please.
Yeah, there may well be some more. So congratulations on your silver class win here tonight, Miguel, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end. Hope to see you next week.
No worries. Thanks, team.
Thanks very much. That's Miguel Costa-Texeira, who's won the silver class here tonight. Top 5 overall as well, by the way, which is by far and away his best result of the season. Hadn't finished in the top 20 before tonight. Wet weather conditions, indeed, he will be hoping for. These are the new championship points. Not sure whether this applies with the penalties or not, but of course those penalties will all probably be provisional in themselves, as all the race results are, by the way, when we end these broadcasts. Obviously, race control has a little look at things afterwards. But if things hold, Eskandari would lead by 28 points, but look at the gaps behind. Over 100 points back to the next driver. Thomas Hinz moves up to 3rd. Rihanna shoots up to 4th. As I mentioned, as his drop weeks applied, then he will get a lot closer to the Championship League. Ocean Colangelo still gains a point, despite not having her best day of the season. 5th place for her, ahead of Scott Baltine. Aidan Coote's still the leader in the silver class by a very long way, but Mitchell Campbell and Miguel Costa-Texeira both make big strides in that silver class championship. It's easy to forget that Craig Edwards is having a very good season, I think, Reese, when you look at those championship standings, because Eskandari is making the headlines by winning all the races, but very often Craig Edwards is finishing 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, and it's that kind of consistency that's really going to pay off for him at the end of the season. Same for Eskandari as well. I mean, it's that they are the 2 sort of runaway leaders of this championship at the moment. Thomas Hinz had a really good round. So did Jackson Rihanna, actually, both of them elevating themselves a little bit further into the top 4. So hopefully with a few more rounds down the gullet, we'll see things get a little bit more closer. Speaking of our next meal, it will take place next week at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, where we will be running the same format as we did at Magny-Cours, 15-minute sprint and 30-minute feature. Should be a fun one.
And it will bring us to the halfway point of our season, with the penultimate sprint round of the season. Only one more at Snetterton to come. As I mentioned, more racing in the UK, maybe more rain as well before the end of the season. We'll see. Have to see whether we get rain again this season. But there'll be a number of drivers hoping for it, and indeed not hoping for it. I guess we've been talking to drivers tonight who will be hoping for it again because they did well tonight, but if we chatted to some drivers who finished a lot further down, they'd say absolutely no more rain. That's just the way that it goes, I suppose. But that's just about it from us here tonight. It's been great to be back once again in the latest round of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated. Of course, a big thanks to our title sponsors and indeed Capstone Marketing and Print Racer as well for making this series possible, and everybody behind the scenes working on this championship. As I say, we'll be back next week at Montreal for the next round of this championship. Same time, same place, although it's an hour earlier for me. Doesn't matter for the rest of you, hopefully, most people watching this broadcast. But if the clocks are changing in your area, then do check the timing so you don't miss the broadcast. But that's just about it from us from Donington Park. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Reece Gardner with George Cook behind the cameras. We'll all be back from Montreal in 1 week's time. Hope to see you then. But from all of us at Donington Park, it is goodbye for now.